The roaring sound of engines filled the dusty road as a group of bikers thundered through the small town, their leather jackets gleaming under the afternoon sun. They were rough, loud, and intimidating to anyone who didn't know them. But just as they slowed down near an old gas station, a tiny figure appeared out of nowhere, a little girl, no older than 7, running barefoot toward them. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, her hands trembling as she waved frantically. The bikers stopped, confused and concerned, watching as she cried out, "Please, help my mom." They took her. Her voice cracked, filled with desperation, and for a moment, the entire world seemed to freeze around her small, shaking frame. The leader of the gang, a tall man with a scar across his cheek named Jack, stepped forward and knelt down beside her, his tough exterior softening as he looked into her tearful eyes. "What happened, kid?" Jack asked gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. Between sobs, she explained that 2 men had broken into their house on the edge of town. They had dragged her mother away while she hid under the bed, too scared to scream. She managed to follow them when they loaded her mom into a rusty van that drove toward the abandoned mill. Jack's jaw tightened. Around him, his crew exchanged glances. They weren't saints, but they had a code: protect the innocent. The little girl's eyes glimmered with a fragile hope as she looked up at them, clutching a small stuffed bear to her chest. "Please," she whispered, "you have bikes, you can catch them." Jack nodded once, his decision made. With a deep growl of engines, the bikers turned their machines around and sped off toward the mill, leaving a trail of dust and thunder behind them. The ride to the mill was tense and fast. Jack's heart pounded as he replayed the little girl's face in his mind. They had seen plenty of darkness in their lives, but this felt different. It felt like a chance to do something right. As they approached the edge of town, the decrepit silhouette of the old mill rose from the horizon like a ghost. The place was notorious, no one went near it after sundown. They parked their bikes quietly behind a row of dead trees, the wind carrying the faint sound of shouting. Jack motioned for the others to follow as they crept closer, their boots crunching softly against gravel. Peering through a broken window, Jack saw 2 men pacing around a terrified woman tied to a chair. She looked pale, her wrists raw from the ropes, her eyes wide with fear. His grip tightened on the chain he always carried, a weapon and a warning. Jack signaled his crew. Within seconds, they burst through the broken door like a storm. The men turned, startled, one of them pulling a knife. But before he could move, one of the bikers, a huge man called Bear, grabbed his arm and twisted it with a sickening crack. The other tried to run, but Jack swung his chain, wrapping it around the man's legs and yanking him to the ground. The room filled with chaos for a brief moment, then silence, broken only by the woman's shaky breaths. Jack rushed to her side, gently cutting through the ropes. "You're safe now, ma'am," he said softly. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized these frightening men had come not to harm, but to save her. She clutched his hand tightly, whispering, "My daughter, is she okay?" Jack smiled faintly. "She's waiting for you." The woman could barely stand, her body weak from fear and exhaustion, but Jack lifted her easily into his arms. The bikers tied up the kidnappers and called the local sheriff anonymously before speeding back toward town. The wind whipped against their faces as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. When they arrived at the gas station, the little girl was still there, sitting on the curb, her eyes fixed on the horizon. When she saw her mother, she screamed with joy and ran forward, her tiny arms reaching out. Jack set the woman down just in time for her daughter to throw herself into her embrace. Both of them wept, holding each other as if they would never let go again. The bikers stood quietly nearby, their tough faces hiding soft hearts that were melting at the sight. Thank you, the woman sobbed, looking up at Jack and his crew. "I don't know who you are, but you saved our lives." Jack shrugged, scratching his beard awkwardly. "Just doing what needed to be done, ma'am." The little girl sniffled and stepped closer, holding out her teddy bear. "This is for you," she said shyly, handing it to Jack. He stared at it for a long moment, then smiled, a real, warm smile that softened the scar on his face. "You keep it, kid," he said, ruffling her hair. "You're braver than all of us." The rest of the gang chuckled softly, some pretending not to wipe their eyes. The sheriff eventually arrived, hauling the kidnappers away, but the woman refused to let go of Jack's hand until she'd thanked him again. You're not like what people say about bikers, she whispered. Jack looked away, the corners of his mouth twitching. We all got our pasts, he said quietly, but sometimes, you get a shot at being better. As the police lights faded into the distance, the gang prepared to leave. The little girl waved at them, shouting, "Bye, heroes." Her voice echoed in the twilight, and for the first time in a long while, Jack felt a strange warmth spreading in his chest. That night, back at their camp, the bikers sat around a crackling fire, the stars glimmering above them. No one said much, but the mood was different, lighter, calmer. Jack pulled out an old photo of his own daughter, lost years ago in a car accident. Maybe that was why he hadn't hesitated today. Saving that woman, saving that child, had healed something deep inside him. The others noticed the change, too. Bear nudged him and said, "Didn't think we'd end up being angels on wheels, huh?" Jack chuckled. "Maybe we ain't angels," he replied, "but at least we're not devils tonight."